So there's a recent post on a liberal blog that outraged some conservatives. Now, that doesn't mean anything in and of itself. I'm sure everything posted on a liberal blog would piss off conservatives. But the post made a very interesting claim. They said, the poorest counties in the country are virtually all Republican counties. And what do the right-wingers say? Outrage! No! Stop it! Democrats suck. End of conversation. Stop talking. Of course, it wasn't a substantive response, but they were outraged. So PolitiFact, it generated enough of a backlash where PolitiFact, which, by the way, bends over backwards to be overly kind to conservatives. They really do. They'll say, it's mostly false, but he said this in this part, and he hedged, and we'll rate it mostly true. They drive me crazy with how they're way too kind to the right when they should just be like, no, you're wrong, period, right? So they fact-checked this post, and it turns out that just like the poorest states in the country are Republican, the poorest counties are Republican. So out of the top 10, how many of them are Republican? What is it, 7? 6? The majority, right? 10 out of 10. In fact, I'll tell you, they are Owsley County, Kentucky, Jefferson County, Mississippi, Wolfe County, Kentucky, Brooks County, Texas, McCreary County, Kentucky, Hudspeth County, Texas, Hancock County, Tennessee, Jackson County, Kentucky, Clay County, Kentucky, Holmes County, Mississippi. All Republican. All Republican. But are you ready for this? It gets worse. So, because they can respond, well, look, man, that's just, it could be an anomaly, / not really. I mean, it's the top 10. That's pretty solid. But whatever, why don't we broaden out our sample size, more information can't hurt, right? I mean, this is the conservative response. Just look at more counties. I'm sure it'll even itself out over a certain amount of time, right? Out of the poorest 100 counties, 93 of them are Republican. Now, here's the thing, man. There are times when Republicans use this argument against us. Obviously not these specific details, but what they'll say is, I've heard Bill O'Reilly make the case. Look at Detroit. See, Detroit? Yeah, Detroit has been run by Democrats for decades. Look at the place it's in. It's horrible. It's terrible. Buildings falling apart. Savages over there. Terrible, terrible, terrible leadership. Got to vote Republican. It'll fix that. And they'll use that argument. They'll repeat it over and over and over. Oh, Democratic places. They're hellholes. Terrible. Look at inner city New York City, run by Democrats. Terrible, terrible. Now, when they use that argument, it is totally disingenuous and totally wrong. When we use it, it's totally right. Now, how can I say that? What's my basis for saying that? Well, it's very simple. When you look at Detroit, the reason why Detroit is in shambles is because of right-wing trade policies where the government allowed General Motors and the car companies to up and leave. They said, you know what, we're going to get rid of all the protectionism laws that we have and the tariffs that we have on imported goods, and we're going to do NAFTA and GATT and the World Trade Organization and these free trade deals. And what do those free trade deals actually do? It's not free trade. It outsources all of the jobs. Why would you keep a factory when you got to pay somebody $25 an hour in Detroit when you could ship it to Mexico and pay somebody $1.12? Doesn't make any sense, right? Doesn't make any sense, but there used to be rules against sending it to Mexico, or if you did send it to Mexico, when you imported the goods, they would put a tax on it, so it's as if you were paying the Mexican worker $25 anyway. But when you got rid of those rules, you made all the big companies, especially in Detroit, where it was the car hub, right? You made them say, all right, we're gone. We're leaving here. And so because of right-wing trade policies, Detroit fell apart. You could have elected Jesus after that, and nothing would have gotten better. Okay? This is the reality. So when they attack, oh my God, a Democratic place that's falling apart, it's usually because of right-wing policies, if not always because of right-wing policies. And the Democrats can't clean up the mess because they've been set too far back by the right-wing policies, which are so extreme. Okay, now in terms of these counties that we go through, and the 93 out of the 100 poorest counties and the poorest states being red states, that's actually because of the policies they believe in. That's the dirty little secret they don't want you to know. don't take my word for it, guys. I always tell you this. There's been thousands of articles written about this. So, for example, when Republicans talk about cutting taxes, they're not talking about you. They're never talking about you. In fact, if you look in Kansas has been doing this recently. I believe Oklahoma has been doing it also. What they've done is they've increased the sales tax and they've increased the income tax rate for middle class and lower class earners. And at the same time they've done that, they've cut taxes for the rich. So they're only talking about the rich when they talk about cutting taxes. Even with President Obama, he cut taxes for 98% of the American people. I mean, when he was running against John McCain and they both proposed their tax plans, CNN Money did an analysis of the tax plans. You know what they found? President Obama, for over 90% of the American people, you get a bigger tax cut under Democrats. See, the Democrats are actually the party of tax cuts, just tax cuts for the right people, the middle class and the poor. The Republicans only want to cut taxes for the rich. So that's just one example. I could go on and on. Obviously, the Democrats are more in favor of the social safety net. They're more in favor of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. They're more in favor of unemployment insurance. They're more in favor of essentially a basic income. They're more in favor of you having something to fall back on and not totally being on your own when the shit hits the fan. The Republicans just, fuck it. We don't care. You're on your own. Food stamps for your kid? We'll cut that too. It's just $1.30 a meal, but fuck your kid. We need to give that money for tax cuts to Wall Street. And the list goes on and on. So the reason why Republican counties and Republican states are more poor is because their policies make you more poor. So sorry, but if you're voting for Republicans in those places, it's the same theme that Thomas Frank writes about in the great book, What's the Matter with Kansas? Okay? If you're voting for Republicans, they're not helping you. They're hurting you. And you should learn that, and you should know that, and you should change your voting patterns accordingly.